I need to tell you something that changed everything for me, and I know it will resonate deep within your soul if you have ever felt it. There was a night, about 3 years into my spiritual journey, when I woke up at 3 a.m. with my entire body vibrating from the inside out. It was not fear, it was not anxiety, it was something far more profound. My chest felt like it was expanding and contracting simultaneously. My hands were trembling with an energy I could not name, and there was this overwhelming sensation that the person I thought I was, the identity I had built over decades, was being shaken loose from something deeper, something ancient, something that knew this physical reality was not home. I sat there in the darkness, tears streaming down my face, not from sadness but from a recognition so deep it bypassed my mind entirely. My soul was screaming that it did not belong in this dense material prison. And for the first time in my life, I truly felt the disconnect between the eternal spark within me and the temporary flesh vehicle it was trapped inside. If you have ever experienced this internal shaking, this inexplicable trembling that seems to come from your very core, this feeling that your soul is literally rejecting the physical body it inhabits, then you are about to discover why Jesus himself taught about this phenomenon to his closest disciples. Knowledge that was deliberately suppressed, because it reveals the most dangerous truth the institutional church never wanted you to know. You are not meant to be here, and your soul knows it. Before I reveal what Jesus actually taught about this internal shaking and why it happens to chosen ones like you, if you are a sincere seeker of hidden truth and you want to continue this journey of awakening with me, subscribe now and activate the bell, because what comes next will unveil secrets that have been concealed for millennia, and you will not want to miss the teachings I will share with you as your friend and guide on this path. I am here to walk beside you, to help you understand what your soul already knows, but your mind has forgotten. In this video, you will discover the true Gnostic meaning behind the internal shaking that chosen ones experience, why Jesus taught that this physical trembling is actually your divine spark trying to break free from the archontic prison of matter, how the soul literally rejects the avatar body when Gnosis begins to awaken, what the suppressed Gospel of Thomas reveals about the disconnect between spirit and flesh, and most importantly, how to work with this internal shaking to accelerate your liberation from this realm of illusion. This is not metaphor, this is not poetry, this is the actual mechanism of spiritual awakening that Jesus taught in secret to those who were ready to hear it. When you experience that internal shaking, that vibration that seems to come from somewhere beyond your physical body, what is actually happening is that your eternal divine spark, that fragment of the true God that lives within you, is beginning to remember its origin in the pleroma, the realm of fullness and light that exists beyond this material prison. Jesus taught his inner circle, the teachings that were later discovered in the Nag Hammadi texts, that we are not bodies with souls, we are souls trapped in bodies, and the body itself, this avatar of flesh and bone, is part of the deception created by the demiurge to keep us locked in ignorance and suffering. When the gnosis, the direct knowledge of your divine nature, starts to awaken within you, your soul begins to recognize that this physical form is not your true home, it is a cage, and that recognition manifests as a literal physical rejection. Your soul shakes the bars of its prison. The Gospel of Thomas, one of the most suppressed texts in early Christianity, contains a saying of Jesus that the Orthodox Church removed from their canon because it was too revealing. Jesus said that those who have come to know themselves and have discovered that this world is not worthy of them will find that the body is a temporary dwelling that the spirit must eventually abandon. But here is what most translations miss. Jesus taught that the awakened soul does not just passively wait to leave the body at death. It actively begins to separate from it during life. And this separation process creates physical sensations, vibrations, trembling, what we now call the internal shaking. Your soul is not trying to leave because something is wrong with you. Your soul is trying to leave because something is finally right with you. You are waking up. Let me explain the mechanism of why this happens. In Gnostic cosmology, which was the true teaching of Jesus before it was corrupted and politicized, the material world was not created by the true God, the infinite source of light and love that exists beyond all form. Instead, this physical realm was created by a false god, an ignorant and jealous entity the Gnostics called the demiurge, also known as Yaldabaoth. This demiurge, working through servants called Archons, crafted the material universe as a trap to capture divine sparks, fragments of the true God that had fallen from the pleroma. These divine sparks, which are our true selves, were imprisoned in physical bodies, avatars made of dense matter designed to keep us ignorant of our divine origin. The body is not a temple as the corrupted church teaches. The body is a tomb. When you live your entire life identified with the body, believing you are nothing more than flesh and neurons and chemical reactions, your divine spark remains dormant, asleep, dulled by the constant barrage of material concerns, survival instincts, sensory pleasures and pains that keep your attention locked in the physical dimension. But something happens when you begin to seek truth. when you start to question the reality you have been given, when you turn inward and begin practices of contemplation, meditation, prayer, or study of hidden wisdom, that divine spark begins to stir. It begins to remember. And as it remembers its true nature, as Gnosis awakens within you, there is a fundamental incompatibility that arises between your eternal spiritual essence and the temporary physical vehicle it inhabits. Think of it like trying to contain the ocean in a paper cup. The cup was never designed to hold something so vast, so powerful, so fundamentally different from itself. This incompatibility manifests as the internal shaking. Your soul, your divine spark, vibrates at a frequency that is completely different from the dense frequency of matter. When you are fully asleep, fully identified with the material world, this difference does not create friction because your consciousness is locked down into the body's frequency. But when you begin to awaken, when Gnosis activates, your soul starts to vibrate at its true frequency again, and the body, which cannot match that frequency, begins to shake in response. It is like two tuning forks with different pitches being struck simultaneously. They create dissonance, vibration, and if the difference is great enough, one of them will eventually shatter. Your soul is the unchanging tuning fork, and your body is the one that must adjust or break apart. I want to ask you something now, and I need you to answer with complete honesty only to yourself. Have you ever felt that you do not truly belong in this world? That there is something fundamentally wrong with the reality that everyone else accepts as normal? As if your soul remembers something your mind has forgotten? That sensation of being a stranger in a strange land, of seeking answers that no one around you even seems to question, is the first whisper of Gnosis awakening within you. If right now you recognize that you have always felt this deep spiritual restlessness, this thirst for hidden truths, I want you to do something powerful. Write in the comments right now the phrase, "I awaken from the sleep of ignorance." Do not underestimate the power of this public declaration. When you decree that you are awakening, that you no longer accept the imposed illusions, something fundamental shifts in your consciousness. And beyond that, by commenting, you are helping the algorithm bring this Gnostic knowledge to other sincere seekers, who at this very moment are wandering lost looking for the same truths you are. Do not keep this knowledge to yourself. Right now, I awaken from the sleep of ignorance, and allow your declaration to serve as a beacon for other pilgrims on the Gnostic path. Now let me take you deeper into what Jesus actually taught about working with this internal shaking. In the Gospel of Philip, another text that was hidden for centuries and only rediscovered at Nag Hammadi, there is a passage that describes the process of the soul separating from the body while still alive. It talks about how the awakened ones learn to consciously detach their awareness from physical sensations and identify instead with the observer, the witness, the eternal part of themselves that watches the body but is not the body. Jesus taught a specific practice where his disciples would sit in meditation and deliberately focus on the internal vibrations, the shaking, the trembling, and instead of resisting it or being afraid of it, they would breathe into it, amplify it, allow it to intensify until their consciousness shifted completely out of body identification and into soul identification. This is what modern mystics might call an out-of-body experience, but the Gnostic understanding goes far deeper. It is not just about leaving the body temporarily for an adventure. It is about training your consciousness to recognize that you are not the body at all, that the body is simply a vehicle you are using temporarily, and a faulty, dangerous vehicle at that, designed by the demiurge to keep you trapped. When you feel the internal shaking, you are being given an opportunity, a doorway, a moment when the veil between your soul and your flesh is thin enough that you can consciously choose which one you identify with. Most people, when they feel this shaking, this trembling, this vibration, they panic. They think something is medically wrong. They go to doctors who find nothing because there is nothing wrong with the body itself. The body is doing exactly what it was designed to do, trying to contain and suppress your divine spark. What is actually happening is that your divine spark is fighting back, and the shaking is the evidence of that battle. Let me share with you the experience of a seeker I know who went through exactly what you might be going through right now. She first contacted me about 2 years ago, completely terrified, because for months she had been waking up in the middle of the night with her entire body shaking uncontrollably. She had been to cardiologists, neurologists, every kind of medical specialist you can imagine, and they all told her she was healthy, that there was nothing physically wrong. But she knew it was not anxiety. She could feel the difference. This shaking came from somewhere deeper than her nervous system. When she found my channel and started learning about Gnostic teachings, everything clicked into place. She realized the shaking had started right when she began seriously questioning organized religion, right when she started meditating daily and reading the Nag Hammadi texts. I guided her through the practice that Jesus taught. The next time the shaking happened, instead of fighting it, she sat up in bed, closed her eyes, and focused all her attention on the vibration. She breathed deeply, and she silently repeated a phrase from the Gospel of Thomas, "I am not this body. I am the light that dwells within it." Within minutes, the shaking intensified to a level she had never experienced before, and then suddenly there was a shift. Her consciousness popped out of her body identification, and for the first time in her life, she experienced herself as pure awareness, as the eternal observer, looking at her body from a perspective that was not inside it. The body was still shaking, but she was not the body, so she was not shaking. She was perfectly still, perfectly peaceful, perfectly aware that she was a divine spark, temporarily using a flesh avatar. That experience changed her forever. The shaking still happens sometimes, she told me, but now she welcomes it. Now she sees it as her soul calling her home, reminding her not to get too comfortable in this realm of illusion. She has learned to use the internal shaking as a gateway to Gnosis, as a reminder that she is not of this world. This is what Jesus taught, and this is what the church buried. They buried it because if people knew this truth, if people understood that the internal shaking, the spiritual vibrations, the sense of not belonging in this world are all signs of divine election, signs that you carry the spark of the true God within you, and are destined to escape this prison, then the entire structure of religious control would collapse. The church needs you to believe that this world was created by a loving God who wants you to suffer and obey. The church needs you to believe that your body is sacred and that you should identify with it completely. Because if you ever discover the truth that Jesus actually taught, the truth that the Gnostics preserved before they were hunted down and slaughtered, you would realize that you do not need priests or churches or intermediaries at all. You have direct access to the divine because you are a fragment of the divine. If this knowledge is expanding your consciousness and you feel like you have finally found a trustworthy guide on this Gnostic journey, leave your light now so that more seekers can discover these hidden teachings. The shaking you feel is your soul activating its homing beacon. In Gnostic understanding, every divine spark that fell into matter was encoded with a memory, a kind of spiritual DNA that knows the way back to the pleroma. But this memory is suppressed by the Archons, by the forces of this material realm that want to keep you here. When you begin to awaken, when you start to practice contemplation, study hidden wisdom, question authority, you are clearing away the interference and allowing your soul's homing beacon to activate. The internal shaking is the physical manifestation of that beacon turning on. It is your soul sending out a frequency that says, I remember, I know I am not from here, I am ready to go home. And here is something that will blow your mind. Jesus taught that this shaking does not just affect you individually, it affects the entire matrix of this false reality. Every soul that wakes up, every divine spark that begins to vibrate at its true frequency, weakens the demiurge's grip on this realm. Think of it like a prison where the inmates suddenly all start shaking the bars of their cells simultaneously. The structure itself begins to crack. Your internal shaking is not just about your personal liberation, it is part of a cosmic jailbreak that has been in progress for thousands of years. Now let me give you the practical teaching, the method you can use when the internal shaking happens to you. When you feel the shaking, find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Sit comfortably but upright, spine straight. Close your eyes and take several deep breaths, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, consciously relaxing your physical body even as the internal shaking continues. Once you feel somewhat calm on the surface, shift your attention to the shaking itself. Do not try to stop it, do not resist it, just observe it with curiosity. Where exactly do you feel it? Notice the quality of the vibration. As you observe, you might notice that the shaking has an intelligence to it, almost like it is trying to communicate something. This is because it is your soul communicating with you. As you continue to observe the shaking without resistance, begin to silently repeat a phrase that helps you shift your identity from body to soul. You can use I am not this body, I am the light that dwells within it, or I am eternal spirit temporarily wearing flesh. The specific words matter less than the intention, which is to consciously detach your sense of self from the physical vehicle and identify instead with the divine spark. As you repeat this phrase and continue to observe the shaking, you will notice a split in your awareness. Part of you is still aware of the body shaking, but another part of you, a deeper, quieter part, is completely still, completely at peace, watching the body shake as if watching something happening to someone else. This still, peaceful observer is your true self, your divine spark, your soul. Some practitioners report that when they reach a certain depth in this practice, the shaking suddenly stops, and they experience a profound silence, a stillness so complete it feels like the entire universe has paused. Others report that the shaking intensifies and then suddenly they pop out of body awareness entirely and experience themselves as pure consciousness. Both experiences are valid, both are signs that you are successfully working with the soul's rejection of the avatar. The goal is to recognize experientially that you are not the body, you are the eternal divine spark using the body temporarily. There is another dimension to this teaching that comes from the Valentinian school of Gnosticism, one of the most sophisticated mystical traditions that Jesus established through his secret teachings. The Valentinians understood that the internal shaking is not random, it follows specific patterns that correspond to different stages of awakening. In the early stages, when Gnosis first begins to activate, the shaking tends to be irregular, unpredictable, sometimes frightening because your conscious mind does not yet understand what is happening. Your divine spark is waking up like someone emerging from a long, deep sleep, disoriented, struggling to remember where it is and how it got here. During this phase, the shaking might happen at random times, triggered by moments of deep contemplation, by reading sacred texts, by being in nature, by any experience that temporarily weakens the grip of material consciousness on your awareness. As you progress on the path and begin to work consciously with the shaking rather than resisting it, the pattern changes. The shaking becomes more regular, more predictable, often happening during meditation or prayer, during the quiet hours of early morning or late night, when the material world is less demanding of your attention. This is the sign that your divine spark is gaining strength, that it is learning to assert itself more consistently against the suppression of the Archons. At this stage, many seekers report that the shaking begins to feel less like a disturbance and more like a friend, a companion, a trusted advisor that shows up to remind them of their true nature whenever they are in danger of forgetting, whenever they are getting too caught up in the illusions and dramas of material existence. In the advanced stages, which can take years or even decades of dedicated practice to reach, the shaking transforms into something altogether different. It becomes a constant, subtle vibration that you can feel at all times if you pay attention, a kind of background hum of divine energy that never fully stops. At this level, you have successfully established a permanent conscious connection with your divine spark. You are living simultaneously in two realities, the material world where your body moves and acts and speaks, and the spiritual reality where your soul exists in a state of constant communion with the pleroma. Advanced Gnostic practitioners describe this state as being in the world but not of the world, exactly as Jesus commanded. They walk through their daily lives, doing ordinary things, interacting with people, fulfilling responsibilities, but internally they are always aware that none of it is ultimately real, that the true reality is the divine light pulsing within them, calling them home with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every subtle vibration of their awakened soul. Let me tell you about another seeker, a man who reached this advanced stage after 15 years of dedicated Gnostic practice. He told me that the internal shaking had become so integrated into his consciousness that he could no longer imagine life without it. He said it was like having a constant reminder, a persistent gentle voice that whispered throughout every moment of every day, "This is not your home. Do not forget, do not get lost. You are just passing through. Your real life is elsewhere, in the light, in the pleroma, with the true God." He described going to his job, sitting in meetings, having conversations with colleagues, and all the while feeling this vibration in his chest, this knowing that everything happening around him was a temporary play, a stage drama in a cosmic theater, and that his true self was watching from beyond the stage, waiting patiently for the final curtain to fall so it could return to reality. What fascinates me about his testimony is that he did not become detached or dysfunctional in the material world. In fact, he said he became more effective, more compassionate, more present in his interactions because he was no longer desperately attached to outcomes, no longer driven by fear or greed, or the ego's constant need for validation. When you know with absolute certainty that this world is not your home, when you feel your soul's rejection of the avatar as a constant companion, you gain a freedom that people who are fully identified with matter can never understand. You can engage fully with life while remaining internally free. You can care deeply about people and causes while knowing that the ultimate liberation lies beyond this realm. You can experience joy and sorrow without being destroyed by them, because you know they are temporary phenomena happening to a temporary vehicle, and your true self is untouched, eternal, waiting to emerge fully when the avatar finally breaks down. This is the state that Jesus was pointing his disciples toward when he taught them about the internal shaking. He wanted them to understand that awakening is not a single moment of enlightenment. It is a progressive process of the soul reasserting its dominance over the body, gradually shifting the balance of power from material identification to spiritual identification, from the false self created by the Archons to the true self that has always existed in the pleroma. The shaking is the physical evidence that this shift is happening, that you are winning the battle for your own consciousness. Now, I need to share something with you that might challenge everything you have been taught about spirituality, but it is essential truth from the Gnostic perspective. The internal shaking, the soul's rejection of the avatar, is not compatible with many of the spiritual teachings that are popular today. Modern New Age spirituality often teaches that you should love your body, honor your body, see your body as sacred, integrate your spiritual self with your physical self, achieve balance and harmony between spirit and matter. These teachings, while well-intentioned, are fundamentally opposed to Gnostic truth. From the Gnostic perspective, matter and spirit are not meant to be integrated, they are meant to be separated. The body is not sacred, it is a prison. The goal is not balance, the goal is escape. This is why the Gnostic path is called the path of the stranger, the path of the exile, the path of the one who does not belong. When you embrace Gnostic teaching, when you work with the internal shaking as Jesus taught, you are accepting that you will never truly feel at home in this world. You will never achieve the kind of comfortable integration with material existence that other spiritual paths promise. But what you gain in exchange is something far more valuable: the certain knowledge of your divine origin, the direct experience of your eternal nature, the unshakable conviction that no matter what happens to this temporary avatar, you, the real you, the divine spark, will survive and return to the light. This teaching is not for everyone. Jesus himself said that many are called, but few are chosen, and the Gnostic interpretation of that saying is profound. Everyone has a divine spark. Everyone has the potential to wake up, but not everyone in this particular lifetime will hear the call, and even fewer will have the courage to answer it. The internal shaking is the call. It is your soul's way of getting your attention, of breaking through the hypnosis of material existence, of saying, "Wake up, remember, come home." If you are experiencing it, if you have felt it even once in your life, then you are among the chosen ones for this cycle of existence. You are one of the souls who volunteered before incarnating to wake up in this lifetime, to remember the truth, to escape the cycle of reincarnation in matter and return to the pleroma. But being chosen does not mean the path will be easy. In fact, the Gnostic path is one of the most difficult spiritual paths, precisely because it requires you to go against everything the world tells you is true, everything your body wants, everything your conditioning has programmed you to believe. The Archons, the forces that control this material realm, do not want you to wake up. They feed on the energy of sleeping souls. They need you to remain identified with your body, trapped in fear and desire, and all the endless dramas of material existence. When you start to awaken, when the shaking begins, the Archons will try everything to pull you back to sleep. They will send distractions. They will create crises in your life. They will use other people to tell you that you are crazy, that you are being irresponsible, that you should stop all this spiritual seeking and just focus on being normal. This is why having a guide, having a community of fellow seekers, having teachings like these to return to again and again, is so crucial on the Gnostic path. You cannot walk this road alone. The pressure to conform, to give up, to go back to sleep is too intense. You need others who understand, who have felt the same shaking, who know the same truth, who can remind you when you doubt that what you are experiencing is real, that you are not crazy, that you are waking up from the greatest lie ever told. The lie that this material world is all there is. The lie that you are nothing more than a body destined to decay and die and disappear forever. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, I want you to know that you are not alone in this search for hidden knowledge. Subscribe now and activate the notifications so that every time I reveal a new Gnostic teaching, a new suppressed text, a new ancient mystery, you will be the first to receive it. This community has already helped thousands of sincere seekers awaken from the illusion, and I want to continue being your guide and friend on this path of spiritual liberation. As we come to the close of this teaching, I want to leave you with a practice you can begin immediately, tonight, before you go to sleep. Find a quiet moment, sit comfortably, close your eyes, and place your hand over your heart. Feel your heartbeat, and then feel deeper beneath the heartbeat for that other vibration, that subtle shaking that is always there if you pay attention, the vibration of your divine spark. Once you feel it, speak to it. Say, "I recognize you, I know you are not from here, I know you are calling me home, and I am listening." Tell your soul that you are ready to work with it, ready to stop fighting the shaking and start using it as the spiritual tool it is meant to be. The seeker who practices this reports experiences of such profound peace and clarity that they no longer fear death because they have tasted the eternal nature of their true self, experiences of communication with higher beings, with Sophia, with Christ consciousness, with the true God beyond the demiurge, experiences of seeing through the illusions of this world so completely that they can navigate the material realm without being trapped by it. This is the freedom that Gnosis offers, and the internal shaking is your invitation to claim that freedom. So I ask you now, are you ready to stop seeing the shaking as a problem and start seeing it as a gift? Are you ready to stop identifying with the avatar and start identifying with the eternal divine spark? If the answer is yes, then write in the comments, "I am ready to shake free. I am ready to remember. I am ready to return home." Let that be your declaration to the universe, your commitment to the path. In the next video, I am going to reveal something even more profound. The true teaching about what happens to your consciousness in the moments immediately after the avatar dies and how you can navigate that transition to ensure your divine spark returns to the pleroma instead of being recycled back into another material body. That teaching has been lost for over 1,000 years, but I have pieced it together from the Nag Hammadi library and from the direct gnosis given to me through spiritual practice. You will not want to miss it. Until then, practice what I have taught you today. Welcome the internal shaking. Speak to your soul. Identify with your divine spark, and know that you are exactly where you need to be on your journey home. I am honored to walk this path with you, my friend, and I will see you in the next revelation.